Not the kind of tired that disappears after a weekend. Not the kind that coffee can bully into silence. I'm talking about the tired that sits behind your eyes. The kind that makes you stare at the ceiling at 2:17 a.m., bargaining with tomorrow. The kind that makes you feel weak for needing rest and ashamed for not being able to get it. You don't tell people how bad it is. You joke about being a light sleeper. You say you've always been like this. You smile when someone says, just relax. But at night, when the room goes quiet and the world stops demanding things from you, your mind becomes louder than any crowd. And that's when it hurts. I'm 58 years old. I've spent more than 3 decades studying sleep, measuring it, tracking it, treating it. I've seen thousands of patients walk into my clinic, executives, mothers, students, veterans, people who look strong, people who look composed, and almost every single one of them whispers the same sentence in some form. I'm exhausted, and I don't know what's wrong with me. They think it's about sleep. It's rarely just about sleep. I want to tell you something that most people won't. Insomnia is not always the enemy. Sometimes it's a message. And you have been ignoring the message for years. You call yourself lazy because you can't get up at 5 a.m. like those productivity gurus. You call yourself broken because your mind won't shut off. You call yourself dramatic because you feel too much. But what if your sleeplessness is not weakness? What if it's grief you never processed? What if it's rejection you swallowed without chewing? What if it's the weight of being the strong one for everyone else? At night, there are no distractions, no notifications, no applause, no expectations, just you. And the parts of you that you've been avoiding all day finally step forward and say, we need to talk. I have sat across from CEOs who command rooms but tremble when they admit they haven't slept more than 4 hours in years. I've listened to grandmothers who raised entire families but break down because they feel invisible now. I've treated men who were taught never to cry, whose bodies now scream in the form of restless nights and racing hearts. They all think they're alone. You think you're alone too. You lie there and replay conversations. You dissect mistakes from 10 years ago. You rehearse arguments that will never happen. You imagine worst-case scenarios with frightening clarity, and then you blame yourself for being overdramatic. Let me tell you something as a doctor, and more importantly, as a human being who has also stared at the ceiling at 3 a.m. Your mind is not your enemy. It is overloaded. Your nervous system is not defective. It is overworked. Your sleeplessness is not proof that you are failing. It is proof that you have been carrying too much for too long. I didn't always understand this. When I was younger, fresh out of residency, I believed sleep was a mechanical equation. Dark room, cool temperature, no caffeine, regular schedule, problem solved. And yes, those things matter. But then I met a man named Kareem. He was 42, sharp suit, controlled voice. He told me he needed better sleep hygiene. He had already optimized everything. No screens after 8 p.m. chamomile tea, white noise machine. He even bought an expensive mattress that cost more than my first car. But he was still sleeping 3 hours a night. When I asked him what he thought about before bed, he said nothing. His jaw tightened. I stayed quiet. After a long pause, he said, I think about whether I've disappointed everyone. That was the real diagnosis. Not poor sleep hygiene, fear. He had built a life around not failing. He was the provider, the fixer, the reliable one. His father had told him when he was 12, don't ever be weak. So he didn't cry at his mother's funeral. He didn't complain when his marriage grew cold. He didn't admit he was drowning. His body did it for him. At night, when his guard dropped, the fear surged. That's when I realized something that changed the way I practice medicine forever. Sleep is not just biological. It is psychological surrender. And you cannot surrender if you don't feel safe. Think about that. You cannot fall into deep healing sleep if your body believes it must stay alert to survive. If you've been rejected, if you've been abandoned, if you've been betrayed, if you've been the child who had to grow up too fast, if you've been the adult who never feels enough, your nervous system learns a quiet rule: stay awake, stay ready, don't relax. Because relaxing once led to pain, so you stay hypervigilant, you overthink, you scan for threats, you replay conversations to avoid future humiliation, and then you hate yourself for being tired, you punish yourself for the symptoms of survival. Let me tell you what I do now. At 58, after decades of watching people break themselves in the dark, I protect my sleep like I protect my heart. Not with gadgets, not with expensive supplements, but with boundaries. The first thing I do is this: I close the day. Most people never close their day. They just collapse into bed. with open loops in their minds, unanswered emails, unresolved emotions. Your brain doesn't know it's safe to power down if the story feels unfinished. So before I sleep, I sit quietly for 10 minutes. I ask myself 3 questions. What did I carry today that wasn't mine? What am I afraid of right now? What can wait until tomorrow? Sometimes the answers are uncomfortable. Sometimes I realize I said yes when I meant no. Sometimes I realize I'm still trying to prove something to someone who stopped watching years ago. But I name it. And when you name something, it loses its grip. You don't need to solve your entire life before bed. You just need to stop pretending nothing hurts. Sleep requires honesty. The second thing I do is this. I forgive myself for being human. You don't do that, do you? You lie in bed and conduct a trial against yourself. Exhibit A, that mistake. Exhibit B, that awkward comment. Exhibit C, that opportunity you missed. And you are both the prosecutor and the judge. No wonder you can't sleep. Before I turn off the light, I say a sentence that once felt ridiculous, but now feels sacred. I did what I could with who I was today. That sentence has healed more of my sleep than any medication because perfection is stimulating. It keeps the brain on high alert. Compassion is sedating. And then there is the hardest PA. RT, I let tomorrow be uncertain. You hate uncertainty. You try to solve next week's problems at midnight. You think if you rehearse every scenario, you'll avoid pain. You won't. You'll just exhaust your self-control. Sleep is an act of trust. At 58, I have buried friends. I have watched patients die. I have seen life rearrange itself without asking permission. And I have learned this, you cannot think your way into safety. You can only breathe your way into it. So when my mind starts racing, I don't fight it anymore. Fighting wakes the system up. Instead, I place one hand on my chest and one on my abdomen. I breathe slowly. I tell my body, we're safe right now, not guaranteed. Just right now. That is enough. You don't need amazing sleep because you want better productivity. You need it because you are tired of surviving. You are tired of being strong, tired of holding everything together while quietly falling apart. Sleep is not laziness. It is restoration. And restoration requires permission. There was a woman in her late 50s who once said to me, if I rest, everything will collapse. She believed she was the pillar holding her family upright, so she stayed alert, always worried. Her insomnia was fierce. We worked together for months. One day she came in and said something different. She said, I didn't answer my daughter's call at midnight. I let her handle it. She looked guilty, but she also looked lighter. That night, she slept 6 hours straight. Nothing collapsed. Sometimes your sleeplessness is tied to a role you refuse to put down. The fixer, the caretaker, the achiever, the invisible one. You don't sleep because if you sleep, you're not performing. Listen to me carefully. You are allowed to exist without performing. You are allowed to be valued without earning it daily. You are allowed to rest without explaining yourself. Your body is not a machine. It is a living record of every silent battle you fought, and it is asking you for something simple. Not optimization, not domination. Safety, connection, kindness. The psychological truth no one tells you is this. Chronic sleeplessness is often a symptom of unprocessed emotion. Grief that never had a funeral. Anger that never had a voice. Fear that never had reassurance. When you numb all day, you feel all night. So if you want amazing sleep, you don't start with the mattress. You start with honesty. You ask yourself what you're really afraid of. You admit where you feel small. You stop shaming yourself for needing comfort. And you build small rituals that tell your nervous system the war is over for today. Turn off the news, dim the lights, lower your voice, touch your own shoulder like you would a child's. You are not weak for needing this. You are human. At 58, here's the greatest secret I can give you. The quality of your sleep mirrors the quality of your self-relationship. If you are harsh with yourself, nights will be harsh. If you are unforgiving, your mind will not forgive you in the dark. If you never slow down during the day, your body will refuse to slow down at night. Amazing sleep is not achieved, it is allowed. And that allowance begins with a decision. Tonight, you can keep fighting yourself, or you can try something radical. You can speak to yourself with respect. You can say, I'm tired, and that makes sense. You can admit you've been carrying pain without calling it weakness. You can release the belief that your value depends on constant output. You can close your eyes not as an escape, but as an act of trust. You don't need to be fearless to sleep well. You need to feel safe enough to let go. And safety starts with you. So here is my challenge to you, not as a doctor, but as a man who has lived long enough to know what matters. Tonight, before you get into bed, pause. Turn off the lights earlier than usual. Sit in the quiet. Let whatever emotion comes up, come up. Don't analyze it. Don't fix it. Just acknowledge it. Say, I see you. Because the parts of you that keep you awake are not enemies. They are younger versions of you still trying to protect you. Thank them. Then tell them you've got it from here. Breathe slowly. Feel the mattress beneath you. Feel the air moving in and out. Feel your heart beating without your effort. Life is happening without your constant control. Let it. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not weak for being tired. You are a human being who has been strong for too long. And strength without rest turns into suffering. So tonight, choose a different kind of strength. The strength to set boundaries, the strength to say no, the strength to forgive yourself, the strength to stop performing. Amazing sleep is not about 8 perfect hours. It's about lying down without fighting yourself. It's about closing your eyes without replaying every failure. It's about trusting that even if tomorrow is uncertain, you don't have to solve it at midnight. You deserve rest, not because you are alive, and being alive is already hard enough. So let tonight be the night you stop punishing yourself in the dark. Let tonight be the night you treat your nervous system like something sacred. Let tonight be the night you choose safety over self-criticism. You don't need to overhaul your life in one evening. Just begin. Close the day. Forgive yourself. Breathe, release. And if you wake up at 2:17 a.m. again, don't panic. Place your hand on your chest. Whisper, we're safe right now. That sentence might feel small, but small acts repeated gently rewire the brain. They teach your body that the night is not a battlefield. It is a refuge. You have spent years surviving. Now it is time to recover. Not tomorrow, tonight. Lie down, let go, and finally, rest.